All right, we're good to go. You ready?
All good.
All right, man. Welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to be down here at your crib. It's a beautiful place here up in New Brunswick. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I had a nice, productive week at work. It was got a lot done. Moved the needle forward in terms of what my goals were this week, and had some good workouts, and just overall just met my personal goals for the week. So I'm feeling pretty good, and just looking forward to relaxing this weekend, not doing anything.
Amazing, bro. One thing I've always admired about you is you're always getting after it. You're always involved both in the work you do, both your work plus your nonprofits, plus getting to the gym, your fitness. You live a really well-rounded lifestyle, and the other thing I really liked about you is that you always got a smile on your face. It's the first thing I noticed when I probably saw you 7-8 months ago in the gym at Crunch. I didn't even know you at the time, but you always had a smile on your face, and I really admire that about you.
No, I appreciate that. I tend to keep a pretty positive attitude overall, positive outlook on life, because one of the lessons that I've learned, I guess, as I go through life and all my experiences, is that you should always just be grateful, and always just be thankful for what you have. And, honestly, I'm blessed to be able to have a place, have food on the table, just even have my basic necessities. And then on top of that, be able to enjoy some nice things in life and have fun. So it's always nice to always take into account what you have. It's very easy to get down. Life can, throw a lot at you, bring you down. But it's important to always try to remember to be grateful and just try to keep a positive attitude. That also goes back to what I do. Probably I'll let everyone know that. So I'm the executive director of a local nonprofit called Embrace Kids Foundation. Through that, we work directly at the Robert Wood Johnson Children's Hospital and the Rutgers Cancer Institute, and we provide direct non-medical support to the families of children battling life-threatening illnesses such as cancer, sickle cell disease, any catastrophic illness that affects the family's day-to-day life. We're there to help them pick up the pieces. And through that, we're at the hospital and the clinic every single day. We meet these families, we build relationships with them. We bring them that daily support and just help them pick up the pieces as they're going through treatment. So with that, you gain a lot of perspective. You see some of these families that we meet, they have incredible hardships, incredible struggles, even beyond just their healthcare situations. So through that, you gain a lot of perspective and you learn to be appreciative of the little things. And then with that, it's important to always keep that positive attitude. And then you also see me in my happy place, which is the gym. That's always where I go to release my stress, get over, maybe if I had a tough day, stuff like that. When I'm in the gym, I'm feeling pretty good. So that's why it's probably another reason why you see me pretty happy over there.
Yeah, man, I met so many people that talk about their gym as their therapy. It's even though you're pushing yourself, you're working hard, there's something so relaxing about it that we can get into. But I want to ask you, when you talk about your positive outlook on life and your ability to find gratitude in small things and appreciativeness, do you think that grew in your life when you started working with a nonprofit, when you noticed the relativity between what your own life and the hardships other people are going through? Or do you think this is something that was in your nature from early on?
It's a good question. It was definitely, I would say it's always been within my nature. I've never been a complainer or a whiner. That's one of my least favorite people in the world, is someone who whines or a woe it's me type of person. Because I believe that's when you're that type of person, you have a victim mentality. Everything's against you, the world's against you. I've always been pretty positive. I found the joy in little things in life, such as relationships, experiences, stuff like that, and gotten a lot of my happiness through that. And then I would say working in this nonprofit or getting involved in these families' lives and being able to provide that direct support to them, that just solidified that and amplified my positive outlook on life. I think it played a role in it, but I think at my base, I always had that in me.
Yeah, I always love when I hear people that not only have the positive outlook but are so proud about it as well. It's like that energy that it helps to, in a way, help that bleed into the people around them as well. And I've come to realize in the last year or so that I think in the West and in modern culture, it's such a tendency to believe that some external thing is the thing that's out there to give you the happiness, and then there's this constant striving for, I need to get this thing, I need to get this thing, I need to get this thing, until then when I finally achieve that thing, that arbitrary definition of success, I'll finally be able to achieve the happiness. But I think I've come to realize that the external state and internal state are completely separate. That even when you change environments, it really just like it solidifies that in your mind. And I can give an example. Like when I'm here in the West, I would say I'm relatively happy, but at the same time, we can get back in the cortisol mode of like, I gotta finish my schoolwork, I gotta go to the gym, I gotta get X, I gotta get X, I gotta get X, and you see your family around that as well. And it could be a fun lifestyle, striving to achieve things, but then also having the ability to like enjoy it along the way is another skill I think you have to develop. But when I went to India, we were talking about it in the gym, and I was living with my family in Assam. Everything there, if you look at just a relative level of monetariness, they have a lot less money. They're living in a more like of a like the toilets are always staying, like everyone's sharing the same toilets, like it's the power's always going out, and it's like a third world nation, right? Like the windows are always open, there's lizards walking around the home, which I think when my sister was there, she was like disgusted by all that, and there's 8 of us living in such a small house, so it's definitely a very different society. In the West would define that as like, oh, like if you don't have any like monetary success or like comfortability, then you must be living such a terrible life. But I found that when you're just there with your family, just like sitting there on the couch, just like talking with them, I felt more happier there, even though there was less of that success compared to when I was here in the West, and I'm just like focusing on next goal after next goal after next goal. What do you think about that?
No, that's definitely very interesting, because I've always said, and the term I use is self-actualized. I think it's important for people to be self-actualized, secure in who they are, and find happiness within themselves, because happiness only comes from within. True joy only comes from within. You can change all the external factors. You can you can try to find someone who you think makes you happy, but at the end of the day, it's how you feel, and that joy and that happiness and that spark will only come from inside you. And now, with that being said, there are external factors that obviously play into this, right? And that's where people's values, morals, goals come into play. Some people do find happiness from the monetary gain, having nice things, having a nice car, a big house. And that's not to say that they're wrong. Some people get joy and happiness out of that, and that's what drives them. Other people may be more relationship based, having strong friendships, strong connectivity with the family. Other people might be more experience based, going on trips, traveling, hiking around the world, different stuff like that. I think as a person, to find that happiness and to truly be happy, you need to do some self-reflection and figure out what makes you happy, and once you do that, then you can work towards achieving that success. Also, what I'll say is that, when you were in India, you were on vacation, right? So you were able to relax and enjoy life and really appreciate the moment that you're in. So that's not to say that, your family out there isn't doing their grind where they have to get X done and then move on to Y and then go on to Z. So even within that, like, I find happiness in that. I find happiness at work, achieving goals, helping out families. Like, it's such a great feeling when you're able to provide some direct support to a family and make a positive impact in that. Even today, there's a young adult patient of mine. He's older than you. He's 21 years old, has a sarcoma right now, but even just go into his room and spending an hour just talking about life with him. We both love cooking. We both love football. So we talked for an hour. Just that conversation with him, made him perk up, made him feel better, distracted him. Having that impact meant the world to me. Even I left that conversation, feeling great. So you have to really figure out, I believe, what drives you, what's going to help you become happy and what's going to fulfill your needs. And once you figure that out, then you have to take the steps to go get that. So part of it, I think you mentioned a little bit of the rat race. Part of that does bring me happiness, because when I achieve those things, bring support to these families, meet goals, have success on the professional level, you feel better about yourself in that. But then also at the same time, you find a different sort of happiness when you go to India and you take a couple weeks off and you get time to recharge and reset and regroup, and you get to have a different sort of experience there. And the happiness is sort of more rooted in the relationships with your family, connecting with them, being part of sort of a different lifestyle, So that's why I think, as you said, I think to your point, happiness is within, and then you need to find that happiness within yourself, and then only you can control the external factors that play a role in that.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said, because even when I reflect on my own life, I think work brings me a joy as well. And whether that be just work as in problem solving, because I really like to problem solve, even just like projects I start, like for example, this project is work technically. And I think that when I look at my values in life, work definitely fits in there. And it really shows that it's more of a delicate balance rather than one is the answer and one's not the answer, right? Like some people, I think the problem is that some people are completely not self-actualized and they say that's the answer. Yeah. So I need to get that thing. But I think that, as you said, that you found this like delicate balance where you feel self-actualized within, but you're also able to use the external things to, like, you feel happy doing those activities. They kind of help you feel that in a way. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about that self-actualization piece, that finding happiness from within, someone listening who may not completely relate to that feeling of like being satisfied with oneself, what advice would you give them to like maybe veering toward that direction and feeling more like happy with who they are?
It's a good question. For someone who's struggling with that, I would ask them to take a step back and self-reflect and see, where does that insecurity come from, or where does that issue that's really continually nagging at you, that's that roadblock to, I guess, your own personal success, where does that come from, and then what steps can you take to overcome that hurdle, because I'm a big believer in self-reflection and then personal growth and personal development. It's important to continue to work on yourself. You continue to try to expand your mind professionally, personally, mentally and physically, to continue to grow and develop. I think it's very important to humans, and being dynamic as a person is important. So you can, even if you don't have that self-actualization at this moment, and you feel maybe it's insecurity, or there's one factor that's really holding you down, I would really take a step back and try to examine what that hurdle is and what you really want out of life, so that you can reach those goals that you have.
I think it's really important that you mentioned that most of the lack of self-actualization comes from an insecurity. And I don't think many people acknowledge that at first, that there's sometimes just one central cause to all the problems they have. And I think that when you have that realization that, oh yeah, it's all coming because of that one belief I had from when I was like 5 years old, and you can break that down and like self-reflect to realize that most of your unhappiness in life is just coming from this belief in your head that might be wrong, and then trying to break down like, where does that come from? Mm-hmm. I find that really incredible. And I think that when I look at like my current more positive outlook on life and happiness, I don't think it was always like that. And I think I found out that at one point I had like a similar insecurity as well, of more of like a self-image that I lacked because of like early childhood stuff, like not being great at sports. And like, I think those things, although they seem trivial at childhood, like they kind of build a self-image in the back of your mind. And I think looking back, breaking that self-image and trying to develop like new achievements to make your self-image improve again, I think when I look at like my transition, it fits perfectly into like into what you've described right here. That you have that insecurity, you need to take time to self-reflect. And another learning I had was that the reason I think today people lack self-reflection is because they're so distracted. Mm-hmm. I think that it's so hard to just sit there and like with the fact that there's something you're trying to find where that insecurity is, or that problem that's sitting in the back of your mind that leads to the lack of self-actualization. And because whenever you enter maybe in a reflective state, you want to immediately distract yourself back, and then I think that's where addiction starts, and that's where the 3 hours scrolling on TikTok starts, and you get lost in the distracted state. And it's easier now than ever. If you just go on autopilot, you're likely to just veer off into a path of addiction, into something of the modern technology. So I really think that the reflection piece is important, but I think for someone who spends so much of their life distracted, how would you even describe to them like what reflection even means?
That's very true. And then also, what I've learned as I've grown up is when you're younger, you're always a little bit more insecure. You become more secure with who you are as a person as you get older. I've seen that within my friends, just within myself as well. When I was your age, slightly younger, I would always, be thinking about what do people think of me? What about how do I come off? How do I look? All that stuff. And now it's just like I'm gonna have fun and do me, and the world can accept me for who I am. And if not, they don't have to engage with me. But it's very true, and I do think that insecurity for your generation, my generation, being a millennial, I think we were the first ones to experience it, because for us, the internet was brand new and we were figuring out how to use it. When I first used the internet, we had dial-up, which means you had to connect to your phone line. I know. So we had Netscape dial-up. So that means that the internet was connected to your phone line, so you couldn't use your phone while you're on the internet. And then, it slowly grows, and then internet, with Google, everything's out there. I was in 8th grade watching videos of watching crazy videos that a child should not be watching, and then going to school the next day, stuff like that is what we were supposed to. And we were the first generation to sort of handle that. We were the first generation to get Facebook. We got Facebook in high school, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you got to take photos and get them up on Facebook and be tagged in them. And you got to look cool so people think that you have a social life. You got to make funny comments on Facebook, all that stuff. And then your generation, you guys have had to deal with obviously TikTok, Instagram, whatever will have you, and you're constantly scrolling on there. And there's two things there that I've noticed. On Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, social media, everyone's living their best life on it, right? The only time you're going to post on social media is when you have something cool to report, So all you're seeing is, so-and-so's on vacation in Bali, my other friend was just did a road trip across the country, and I'm just sitting here at home, studying or doing this. So everyone seems like the coolest person in the world on social media, right? And then the flip side to that also is social media. You see some horrible things, doom scrolling. It's very easy just to get locked in, and it's very addictive. A 20-second video of a shark swimming next, and then the next is a puppy video, then sports highlights. So easy to get lost in that. And then what that is both of those are forms of escapism, right? You're being temporarily transported out of your life because life is hard. Life is always tough. There's always internal struggles that you're going to be dealing with, external stresses, and it's very easy. And I've been guilty of this myself as well. But it's very easy to just sit back and just scroll through Instagram for 3 hours and just completely disconnect with your life, which sometimes is fine. But if you're doing that every night, then you're not having an honest conversation with yourself. You're stepping into sort of an alternate reality, and you're unplugging in not the healthiest way, where you're just it's, what does he call it? I think you get brain rot, right? You're just scrolling at video after video after video, and you're just ignoring your own life. And you go to sleep, you wake up the next day, and then you jump into what your daily tasks are. It's important to take a moment. When I say self-reflection, I'm thinking it's important to take a moment. Some people it's meditation. Some people it's at the gym. But it's important to take a moment at some point and just take a step back and reflect on your day, your week, what made you happy this week, what were moments that you felt insecure, scared, unhappy. What were your habits this week? Did you go to sleep on time every single day? Did you eat healthy every single day? All those different things. It's important to just take some time and take stock of how your day was. And then from there, you can really determine, you're like, oh, well, this week kind of sucked because I was up till 3 a.m. every night just doom scrolling away. Like, why am I doing that to myself? You know what I mean? And then maybe the next week you reset a little bit. That's something that you're more focused on, because you can take purposeful action towards these things. You're in control of all these things. And if it's in the front of your mind, you can take purposeful action to fix these things. Earlier this year, I went through a stretch where I just didn't feel like cooking. And I would just eat out a lot, and that would obviously make me unhappy because then I'm having these processed foods, going to bed unhealthy, waking up tired, feeling sluggish, and it's a self-fulfilling cycle, right? In my head, though, I'm like, oh, I'm going to the gym. I'm fine. I'm still healthy. But there's so much more to that. When I self-reflected, I was like, all right, well, now every single weekend on Sunday, go to the grocery store, get your groceries for the week, plan out what you're going to cook. You can take purposeful action to overcome these challenges or these self-blocks that you have. And that's where, before you take that purposeful action, though, you need to reflect and figure out what action needs to be taken. So that's what I would say is when I say self-reflect is find quiet time in your own head to really think through and run through your day like a highlight reel rather than running through Instagram and just scrolling away. So that's what I think, for a lot of your generation, and my generation as well, it's very easy for us to get locked into that and just kind of push that stuff away. It's tougher to confront those challenges.
Yeah, when we were talking earlier about happiness, I think another way to look at happiness is relativity, where that at the end of the day, happiness is not defined by maybe an external number, but by like the relativity based on what you have versus what your environment has, which is why if you look at your life and you're constantly around people at the nonprofit, at the hospital who have so much less than you, maybe facing so much more hardship than you, all of a sudden the relativity feel is that like your life may be better than these people, and then you feel more gratitude, you feel more fulfilled, versus someone who might spend maybe an hour or two a day on Instagram looking at people who are living the perfect life, right? They're in Bali, like these guys went out partying this night, like these guys are just going on this adventure over here. And then relativity works in the same way. Now your environment is people who are doing better than you, and now you're living that dissatisfaction as well.
That's exactly it. You're constantly comparing yourself, right? And as being Indian, we naturally like to compare ourselves to others. That's part of what we do. And fortunately for me, my parents weren't that competitive or didn't bring that up that much. But you're constantly comparing yourself to other people. It's just natural, to have envy, jealousy. It's a natural human. It's innate in our nature, right? So that's why it's always important, I think, to try to force yourself out of that. It's a purposeful action that you take to get yourself out of that headspace. Luckily for me, myself, I've never really been one to look at what other people have and say, oh, I want that. Like, oh, they're doing so much better than me. I've never been competitive in that self. And then, one of the things I try to remember is something I heard was, the race is long, right? Life is long. And at the end of the day, the competition is only with yourself. So sometimes in life you're ahead, sometimes you're behind, but it's a long race. And at the end of the day, the only competition is yourself. You're trying to be better than you were yesterday, and slowly, incrementally grow as a person. And then also don't be too hard on yourself. As you go through life, don't congratulate yourself too much, but don't berate yourself too much, right? Because honestly, all our choices, it's half chance, and that's part of growth. You learn from your mistakes and you build on the positives. So it's important to understand that within yourself And when you truly start to understand that, you start looking at the external and stop comparing yourself to that influencer who's in like sunsetting around Europe. Because then you look at your own life, and you realize you've had some cool experiences. You know, you've traveled, you've done some cool things, you've had some fun nights with your friends. You know, when you look through your own lens that way in life, you start to realize you're like, all right, I'm doing all right over here. So it's important to take yourself out of that mindset, I think, and that's work, because I'm not perfect at that either.
I want to go back to the advent of the internet, because I'm really curious about what it was like when it first came out. I've heard all these stories that no one saw it coming, and then one day they opened their phone and Google was there. And I wonder, to what degree was that true, and also what age, you can first start by like what age did the internet come out for you, so more perspective.
So my journey with the internet, that's interesting. First time I remember going on the internet, maybe 97, 98. I was 5, 6 years old. That's what I told you about dial-up, right? And we would use it I was 5, 6 years old, so I'd use it like watching my dad use it, kind of, right? And then as slowly as we start to get landline connections or internet connections, where you start to hook it up, it was a lot of information right at your fingertips very quickly, right? And we were all figuring this out together. And I remember like the early 2000s is really when I started exploring it more. And it was sort of overnight. Obviously it wasn't overnight, but it was sort of overnight. You know, you would have cool new updates. Google would come out. There would be another cool website. YouTube came out in 2005, something like that. And then MySpace came out in 2003 or 4. I remember I had a MySpace. So then we start sharing songs with each other. I did have Napster. Do you know what Napster is? So Napster was the very first platform where you could like illegally download songs, stuff like that, right? I remember the first thing my brother and I downloaded on Napster was Cypress Hill's Rock Superstar. I'm not sure if you know that song, but it's a very, very popular song. And it took us like a day to download that one song, right? But that's what we knew. Oh, all of a sudden now music's at our fingertips, right? And then after that, apps continue to develop. With that, we would download viruses and crash our computer and get yelled at by our parents. But we started downloading movies, music, all this media. And then you had Google, where you could just Google information for school projects or start watching videos. And then YouTube comes out, right? And then people start posting videos of what they're doing in their daily lives. Facebook, MySpace, Yahoo Sports, ESPN. You start watching all highlights, all these different things. All this information is at our fingertips, And it was a lot to digest very quickly for our generation and then our parents' generation. For our parents is, how do we manage this for our kids? Because it's brand new for them. They might not be as knowledgeable. And obviously as kids, we figured out how to use all this fun stuff at our disposal much quicker than our parents did, maybe. And for us, it became so those are the two sort of ongoing struggles at the time. And then with us, we started to be able to have AOL Instant Messenger, right? That was a program where you had a screen name on there, and you could just message back and forth with your friends. So you come home from school, you get on AIM, and you start talking to your crush on there, You spit game there. You talk to your friends, different things like that. And then slowly, this digital world sort of developed. It's really a digital world within itself, where sort of like an alternate reality. And with that, all this information at our fingertips, all this stuff coming at us very fast, I think it shaped how millennials as a generation then developed, and it shaped the way that we handle information, the way that we process information. And with that, it had a large impact because it happened in such a short time where the entire world changed. And even from then, even from when I was in high school till now, the way that information has gone by, the way that's disseminated, with Twitter, Facebook, just having all this at your fingertips on your phone, is it's a whole nother challenge in itself on how you guys process that information now. So I think with the internet, it really changed the way that we think, the way that we approach life, all these different things, how we consume media, different stuff like that. And I think the impact of the internet on that was transformational for our entire generation. And I wouldn't say it was overnight, but when you look back at it now, it all happened very fast. It happened over the course of a few years, and then these new websites come developing, and they come out, and you're able to use this different information. You start to gain more and more access, and then now you're really just shaped by all these different experiences that you have online.
That's really interesting perspective to hear, because for someone who's born like late 2000, 2006, you're kind of born with it. So,
You were born in 2006? Wow. All right, that makes me feel better. So I was in 8th grade going into 9th grade around that time. So yeah, it was very much that. That's around the time YouTube came out and all that.
So as you can imagine, for someone growing up in that time, like since they're born with it, it doesn't seem like anything crazy. Like you see your mom on, like my dad had a BlackBerry. We played like the little bouncy game on the BlackBerry. Not sure if you know about that, but it came when we were still at a pretty young age. Even the new things started coming out, like YouTube and everything. Like we were still so young at the time that it seemed like a normal part of life.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only imagine someone growing up in a time like the 90s where you didn't have it and now you had it. It must have been a fascinating feeling, because I think if you look back at history, the internet is up there as one of the most like both life-changing, world-changing inventions, but also just fascinating in a way. Like, how the fuck does this work? And sometimes you sit back and think about the internet as a concept, like it's pretty insane.
Yeah.
I can bring a phone in the middle of the Amazon, and as long as I get a little bit of reception, I can do like call people and to like do all this shit online, post like pictures of orangutans or whatever. Like it's really insane how fast we came here, especially considering 30 years ago. Like that's not a long time at all. Like the idea of this if someone from the future came and told us like, yeah, this is about to happen, like no one would have believed it. It's also like we project things in the future. Like we're thinking about flying cars, we're thinking about Neuralink, like we're thinking about all the things that we're going to be developing. I feel like the internet is one of the things where no one really had the idea of it even ever being like. I think back in the 90s, people were mainly thinking about flying cars. That's the next thing that's happening. And all of a sudden, the internet comes up and no one understands it at first, and some people are kind of receptive to it but then all of a sudden everyone starts like hopping on it, especially businesses that hopped on it like exploded, like Amazon for example. I think you were still pretty young at the time. We're 5 years old. Where maybe I know like the first few years of our childhood we don't remember much. So maybe for you it's in a similar way that it was kind of part of childhood growing up. But then I think it was still a slow progression. Where like YouTube came out when you were pretty old, right? Like 10 years old maybe.
I was 13. Yeah. Yep, I was middle school age. And to your point, actually, you know what? In the moment, I didn't appreciate it. Because it's life. It's okay, cool, we got a computer in the house. You're excited for a day, you start to use it, and then all right, nice, you have internet, and then cool, I can watch videos on here. Oh, nice, there's this thing called Facebook that's come out. Let me make a profile. It just becomes something that you use, that you get used to, and in the moment, I didn't take time. I was like, oh, this is really cool, and like, oh, look at how my life changed from the 90s when I had to use a handheld phone or a landline phone to call my friend, and then his parents pick up and I go, can I talk to Michael please? Like, that was the whole thing. That was something actually your generation doesn't really know, is that when you used to have to call your crush, right? Or you would call and then her parents would pick up, so you'd be like, oh, can I please talk to someone? So it would always be like another level of awkwardness. But then like in the moment, it's just part of life. Like YouTube came out. Oh, cool. Here's a website. It has videos on it. And it just slowly, you slowly get used to it, right? And you, in a way, you take it for granted. Even today, you see how people take things for granted. Like their phone's not working, or like when they lose service somewhere, like especially like at Crunch, there's a little dead zone there. Yeah. You lose service and we're all like, so stupid. I can't believe we didn't get service in here. Are you kidding me, bro? You know what I mean? It's in the moment, you're just kind of like, you take it for granted and you're not really appreciating how amazing it is, right? But when you look back at it now, you're forced to sit back and reflect and look back at it. I mean, it's crazy that between the ages of 5 and 10, how much changed for me. Not having internet to being able to go on the computer and go on websites and watch videos, watch movies. And then between the age of 10 and 15, how much changed. Being connected to all my friends online, being able to watch these YouTube videos, sports highlights, movies, music, information, all at our fingertips. News right there at our fingertips, weather, all that stuff. So I think in the moment, it was just kind of part of life, right? But now when I look back at it, obviously it's insane how quickly the world changed that much. Because if you think back to, I don't think for generations, I don't think the world has changed that much for previous generations. Maybe our parents' generations where they got TV, radio, other technology like that, but even for them, imagine where your dad was born, what was available to him to now, that's a lot of change that your parents have gone through, right? I doubt your dad, maybe they had one TV, like getting a TV was a big deal. Even then, having a car, wasn't as commonplace, so then you think about our grandparents' generation, having the radio was a novelty for them, right? And this new technology. So I think we've definitely grown the fastest in terms of what has been available, and that has changed the world the quickest. The world's changing in real time, and we've had to adapt to that. Not to mention, we've had also a lot of just crazy events that have happened in the world, which our generation's experienced. But I do think, and I might be wrong, and there's a point to argue against it, but I think in terms of how quickly the world has shifted, this generation that we have, century of living, is the fastest the world has changed. You go back 100 years, in 1924, the car had just come out, right? Henry Ford's Model T, just come out. And we were just coming out of World War I. And you think about how much the world has changed from then to now, where we have information at our fingertips and all that progression. It's insane because, I think you look between 1824 and 1924, sure, the world changed a lot, right? You went from maybe much more of I think the big thing then was the Industrial Revolution, cotton gin, workplace conditions, all that. Now you come over here, and in that 100 years, I think our world has changed in terms of access to information. That really is incredibly different for us, and I think we are realizing the effects of that. I think actually that's what I'll say. I'll let you speak as well. Sorry if I'm going on. But access to information is really, I think, the biggest change in the world. How we receive information, going from newspapers, even communication, writing letters, going from that, being able to communicate with someone only every 2 weeks or something like that. Now being able to jump on FaceTime with my cousins in India, like that, the communication and the access to information, I think, has been the biggest change in the world that we've experienced. And that has had such a phenomenal impact on people and the world itself. That's what I believe, at least.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. When I sit back and reflect on the last 30 years, it's really, really shocking.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
For your generation, you're Gen Z?
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess for your generation, in terms of internet, the age of internet, all that, what's been the biggest challenge, do you think, for you personally, and then I guess your generation as a whole? What's that experience been like for you guys? How do you view the past, and then how do you view how you guys relate to that?
It's a great question. I'll talk in two parts. I first want to reflect on the thing you said, because it's been in my mind. I think it's so fascinating, the internet's growth, and then I'll get to that question because I think they're connected in a way, and it's important we get to that as well. But it's really followed an exponential trend in terms of the speed of growth in technology, and I'll go all the way back to 100,000 years ago when I say this. When Homo sapiens first arrived, I think 100,000, 200,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It took 50 to 100,000 years to get to an agricultural society. Like, when we're talking about the exponential curve, like, it's really going like this, you know? Then we start to get agriculture, we're all making societies, and slowly, I don't know the exact progression of what happens, but I think societies start to grow as everyone's coming together, and later on, the scientific revolution, the industrial revolution, and then if you think of the different eras, like, I read this book called Sapiens, I don't know if you know, but it describes the different eras, and each era, in terms of how long it is going like this, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the first, like, hunter-gatherer era, it's this big. Agriculture era, scientific revolution, I'm pretty sure it just started like the year 1500 now. And then the industrial revolution, which is 100 years ago. Now the technology revolution is like yesterday, no? And it shows you how fast it's going, but it does scare me a little bit. Because I guess the next question is, like, where do we go from here? Like, who is actually taking advantage of that in a negative way? And I think that goes into what your question you asked, like, what has the biggest challenge been in terms of, like, dealing with the internet and growing up in an age where so much access to technology? And I would say that in terms of the internet, your generation has seen the whole story in a way. Maybe even people maybe 5-10 years younger than you, maybe have seen even a larger story set to see how it progressed and came to where it is now. But I think since you were so young along the process, you're really the ones engaging with it as well. So you definitely saw the whole progression, the different eras of it. And for me, I would still say I'm born at the time as early on, but if I look at the last 5 to 10 years, I think that the kids that are growing up who were born in like 2015, 2016, up to 2024, they're really getting hit hard. Because I think the turn it's taken as well, internet starts as this incredible thing, Facebook's this incredible thing. Now it's become to the point where it's so addictive. We have kids like 3-4 years old that I can't put the iPad down, like 5 years old, 6 years old on iPad scrolling on TikTok. And I worry because as soon as everyone found out, like the secret TikTok found about how the algorithm works and how to addict someone, like everyone hopped on it so fast. I remember when Instagram went there, this thing called Instagram Reels, now there's YouTube Shorts, and you go on the Google app and there's a little scrolling thing there. On the Amazon app, there's a scrolling thing there. Like, you'll be shocked if you go check it out. I think in the world today, the levels of unhappiness and unsatisfactoriness, as we were talking about before, has fallen so low just because people spend so much time on the internet. And we can't even blame people. Like, if you go to a restaurant and you see some like 11-year-olds on their phone the whole time, like some girl setting Snapchats or something, or some guy just like scrolling or whatever it is. Like, I think I used to feel like this level of angst, like how could they be like wasting their life like this? Like, how could their family even allow that? But I think the problem arises that I've come to have more sympathy because I don't think it's their fault. We've all been there on the doom scroll, as you said. I've been there too before in the past. And I think it's growing up in this era might be one of the most challenging things to do, because if you just go on autopilot, there's addiction waiting for you at every corner. Like, there's all these processed food companies trying to offer you their food, and there's all these social media companies trying to get you on their app, and everyone has optimized the color of the app screen to the sound of the notification to literally every aspect of it. Like, so some apps like Snapchat are like designed, every like feature of Snapchat is designed in a way to hijack something primitive inside of us that gets addicted to the app in a way, like streaks and all that. It's such a primal thing that's baked inside of us of wanting strong social connections and all that. And I think the challenge for people growing up today is that you can't live on autopilot anymore, because as soon as you live on autopilot, you're falling in the bottom of addiction. It takes intervention, I think, to make your life, I think, somewhat meaningful in today's generation.
And part of that also comes from parenting. I mean, parenting, it's very important. You know, obviously your parents did a wonderful job raising you. You don't seem too addicted to the apps. You're very driven. I mean, I would say you are light years ahead of where I was when I was an 18-year-old, you know? And I think that's what it's important for the next generation of parents, you know, because the next generation of parents maybe grew up with the internet in the early phases, right? Let's say a kid was born in 2015. Kid was born in 2015, right? He was born to a 25-year-old or 30-year-old, right? That means that his parents would have been born in 1985, something like that, right? It was good quick math there. 85 or 90, around that time, right? So they would have some awareness, more awareness of this, you know, of the dangers, because we were exposed to that awareness, or we were exposed to those dangers as well. It was very easy for us to get addicted to things online as well, and like that was sort of the start of it. Now it's easier, you know, to do that, but that's why I think it's important for parents to really take an active and mindful approach to that to make sure that their kids aren't spending too much time on TikTok or too much time on the iPad, and really making sure that they become well-rounded. I have cousins who are your age, and they're some of the most well-rounded kids that I've met. One cousin, the older one, he just graduated high school. He's going to George Washington in the fall. Both of them can cook for themselves. They bake. They're very active in school. They do crew. Get good grades. So active social life. His little sister is one of the most impressive people. Really great at crew. Excellent chef. Loves to bake. Just does it all. Is very well rounded, and that's because the parents actively limit that. So as I'm not too worried, because every single generation is going to continue to grow. They're going to have their challenges, right? But it's important that the parents are there to help guide their kids through that. The parents will be more wary, just like that. We're just like when you have kids, whatever the next technological breakthrough is, or access to fun or whatever it is, you'll be more aware of this, and you'll be able to parent your kids on how to use that better. So I think that the parenting is important, and I'm not too worried about it. The one hesitation, I guess concern I have is what is the effect of the pandemic, because the pandemic shut us inside, and for 2 years or 1.5 years, these kids who are in an important developmental time in their lives were forced to live their lives in a digital world, right? You go to school online, video chat with your friends, play video games on there, movies, all that stuff. Your entire life was online, right? I think some people have had a tougher time snapping out of that than others. It's much easier to live your life. It's very easy now to live your life in a completely digital world, and not have any of that direct human interaction. And I think it's a statement of fact. The studies that back this up probably that having positive social interaction with someone direct, going outside in the sunlight, experiencing nature, being with your friends, that does play an important part in your own personal happiness, right? And that brings us kind of full circle. So that's why it's very important that, but one of the things I've noticed is that with the pandemic, it made it very easy to get locked in that world. But I'm not too worried about your generation because, the young generation, because I believe, the parents will understand this, and then hopefully good parents will parent their kids well. One thing I've noticed about your generation also, like one of the positives of the internet is because you guys are so much more well connected with the world, and not in your own little bubbles of small towns. I feel like your generation has a lot more empathy. You guys definitely seem to be much more understanding of people's differences, and you guys are much more based on the character of the person informing your judgments rather than preconceived judgments. I've seen that overall in your generation, that you guys have become you guys seem to have a lot more empathy, and that's what you want. You want each generation to get smarter. And that's the whole point of evolution. It's a very slow incremental change, but you want the next generation to be stronger, smarter, better, and continue to grow and develop, and then that's how you'll get to the next breakthroughs. Even from the society perspective, sort of leaving out or leaving behind some antiquated ways of thinking. You want each generation to slowly become more in tune with that, and become more progressive in that sense, in the sense of growth. And I think we're doing that. You know what I mean? I think we're a little too hard on ourselves. It's very easy to say that the world is like society is collapsing. But I think each generation is becoming more wary of these things. The biggest thing though is the actual world itself is getting a lot warmer very quickly. So that's actually what worries me more, is not the societal part, but it's actually the environment being unlivable or uninhabitable for a mass population of humans. But that's a whole nother discussion. But society wise, I think that you'll be all right.
Yeah, you've done it again. You're giving me a positive outlook on life. Yeah, I think we need more of that definitely because you just listen to all these podcasts. So many people are just talking about all the doom stories of the world, especially the news. Like I try to stay away from the news. Like it's portraying the world as such a dark, gloomy place. And I mean, it always feels like society is collapsing. I'm sure it felt like that like 2,000, 3,000 years ago as well. And we all somehow are still here, so we'll probably be fine. Um, I wanted to go back to the pandemic stuff you're talking about as well because one of the questions you asked is like how long did it take some people to snap back, and I think for me it took me like almost a year to snap back out of that, like all the way to till 2022, 2023 to really get out of that zone. And when I look back at it,
can I ask you now? Are you just naturally as you are? And I think I know the answer, but are you a social person? Are you extroverted? Are those human connections and being out important to you, and that's something that drives you?
Yeah, now that I am, I would say yes. Now that I am so social, I look back at that time trying to comprehend like how I was able to not be so social for so long because now I think it's such a pivotal part of my life that, and I think social life is also such a broad term that people define it in like this one singular way, like this is how you're supposed to do a social life. But I think for me, it's like the summer went by, like my social life is just doing podcasts, lifting with people, hiking with people, just like going on adventures with people, and I think that to me makes life a lot more fulfilling now. I mean, COVID, I was just stuck inside for so long every day, like not even leaving the house to go on a walk around my community. I didn't understand the concept of fitness back then because that was before I started lifting. I probably doing some small stuff in the home, but not really much. But yeah, now that I spend so much time inside that now it's like if I...
You're also 13.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break. How dare you not be hitting the weights at 12? Oh, so behind. No, sorry.
Well, it's not even weights. I believe that fitness should be a part of your life, even if it's not the gym. Yeah. That like, even if I'm just like playing sports with my friends or something like that, or just like playing basketball. I think that something I did more in middle school that I kind of stopped doing as much. Like even just going outside to just smell the breeze or just see the sun. Like that's how like poor it was at that time. I think for me, but I think to me is like now that if I spend like half a day, like 6-7 hours, like in my home. I start to kind of go insane a little bit. I'm like, I gotta go out somewhere, like even if it's just to the mall or something. I gotta get out of the house. And when I live like that now, I almost look back at that time as like how was I able to stay inside the house for like 4 months straight? And I guess a reflection of that was I was pretty unhappy at the time too, which it goes into showing that I think you're going back into the role of parenting and everything, right? I do think that since the internet crept up on us, I don't think parents were well equipped or prepared for that. And even when they found out it was a thing, they didn't realize the addictive potential. Which is exactly now that we know about it, now that we know that there's people out there like trying to make this addictive, we're much better equipped, right? And I think the solution that you said, I agree with completely. That I think the source of happiness in life is just doing activities that you love doing, right? Like one thing I'm grateful for is that it's a culture in our family to be doing things like activities. Like my dad, he's obsessed with like going to the gym and like going on runs and hiking, and he's doing his work, and outside of his work he likes writing books, and he loves doing a lot of stuff. And then for me, like I wrestled in high school. I love wrestling. I love hiking. I love like lifting, and the list goes on. I love podcasting. Like you just stack into activity. Like my sister, she's at tennis class and guitar class. And I think when you're so involved in doing something, just like going in a flow state, just enjoying the process of it, doing it with people you love as well. I think when people start overthinking like the meaning of life and all that, I just come back to just do things you love with people you love.
No, I agree with that 100%. And that's the happiness for me. And that's also, I think, what that self-reflection we were talking about before is figuring out what makes you happy like that. And just constantly doing things. That's always the advice that I always say to younger people is always keep an open mind. You know, keep an open mind in terms of trying new experiences, trying new things. You know, like when you go to college, one thing that I recommend to you is I think in the first week, they usually have something called like an involvement fair where all the clubs, fraternities, sports leagues, every organization that exists sets up like a little booth and you can go and learn more about them. And you find out there's so many interesting organizations out there and clubs and stuff. So I would say to you, you know, when you first get to college, whatever that day is, get out there and explore. Like try to do a few different clubs. And I'm not saying you have to like go all in on them, but check them out. And then from there, you'll slowly start to find, you know, which clubs you want to do the most, what activities you like to do the most. And you'll find that active social life, because it's important to have an active social life. And that's one thing where I'm fortunate. My parents always encouraged my brother and I to have active social lives. We had to do our work first. That needed to be taken care of. You need to be doing well with that. But it was also important that on Friday evenings you hang out with your friends, or you go to sports, you do your extracurriculars, because it's important for a developing mind to continue to do these activities that you enjoy, that challenge you, that stimulate you, that work your brain in other ways, and when you do that, when you find those, people call them hobbies, whatever it is, but for you in college, whatever you find those activities that you really like, you'll develop your social network around those activities. You become friendly with the people in that. You'll have a healthy social life there. You'll be more well-rounded as a person. You'll network a little bit. So even beyond just your classes that you're taking, continue those activities because that's only going to help you be more happy and find that joy in life. And I think that's very important for people to experience that.
Completely agree, man. I appreciate the advice, and I'm definitely going to get after that. Check out as much as I can. And I think it's useful to have a period in life where you say yes to everything for a brief period of time, see what just clicks, and then you can go all in something and get better at things. But Armaan, thank you so much for this discussion today. Learned a lot. I feel like we should definitely do this again because I feel like there are definitely topic areas that I can reflect on from this discussion that we can go a lot deeper in. We didn't even touch on your leadership stories. It's just something we talked about. We're going to talk about today, but you can get to it. So.
Yeah, I know. I'd be more than happy to continue. I know I could talk about a lot of things. Hopefully, I didn't over talk. I can do that sometimes. But it was great to have a good back and forth with you and really, as we talked about, one of the themes, self-reflect on the growth, the internet, what it's had, the impact that it's had on me, and then future generations. But no, I'd be definitely happy to return when you're maybe when you're back on break or something like that. We could do something like that. Would be great.
It's funny when people at the end of a podcast tell me they think they talk too much because the podcast is supposed to talk too much. That's the whole point. But yeah, I'll be gone in 10 days or so. The 17th I leave. Oh. So, and I probably won't be back till December. Oh. So it'll be a while. But
you're not coming back for Thanksgiving?
I think as of now we're planning on going to the Great Smoky Mountains. So I'll probably go right from Michigan to Tennessee. So.
Oh, the Smoky Mountains are cool, man.
You been there?
Yeah. So when I grew up, I spent time growing up in Atlanta, and we used to go to Chattanooga all the time. Only time I saw a bear in my life. I've seen one wild bear. Holding on to this, but we were in the Smoky Mountains. We did one, it was like a 6-mile hike or something like that. We were little kids. It's a lot. But as we're walking back, we stayed overnight at this one campsite. As we're walking back, we start to hear rustles in the trees. And my mom and my brother were like, oh, is that a bear? Because, there's all these signs about bears and what to do. And my dad was like, no, it's not a bear. It's probably just another animal because it's rare that it'd be a bear. And me trying to be cool and play it cool, I was freaking out inside, but I was like, I got to be cool for my dad. I was like, oh, yeah, definitely not a bear. Why would you think that? Stupid. And then as we're walking, though, we continue walking, and we get to a point. And I look from here to probably a little bit beyond the end of the wall over there. There's just a bear chilling, just grazing in the yard. So I stop. We all stop and look at the bear. The bear looks up, looks at us, and then my dad's like, no one say anything. Just keep walking. And the bear just goes right back to what it was doing. So that's a cool story, though. So hopefully you see a bear out there. That'd be great. Sweet.
Are you supposed to make a lot of noises, though, when you see a bear, or is that the rule? Or
it depends on the bear.
Okay.
So I forgot what it is, but I think with a black bear, I think you're supposed to go small and stay still. With the grizzly bear, you're supposed to get big. And then with a polar bear, you're supposed to pray.
Yeah, I know.
And I think so. I might be wrong. Yeah, and if I'm wrong, don't post this on the podcast. Just flip it what I say. But now I think with that, but in that case, I think that's more so if a bear is looking at you and curious about you or seems aggressive. In this case, the bear is just doing its thing. We were doing our thing, and then my dad's like, all right, before you even let the bear even figure look at us or come at us, like just keep going. So that's why. Yeah.
Amazing. You got me excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be there Thanksgiving most likely. So be back for a week in December. So if I'm around, we'll do a podcast. And yeah, man.
I'd be more than happy. I appreciate this opportunity. It was great to chat with you. Hopefully I was good. And we'll definitely continue to stay in touch. And I wish you the best at college. Go out there, go get them. It's a new phase of your life. And as I said, open-minded, be open to new experiences, meet new people, make friends in class, make friends wherever you can. And you know what you'll see is as you develop in college, you'll find your niche, you'll find what you really like to do, and you'll slowly start to whittle down the activities and be able to focus more. But it's a very unique and interesting time in your life, and I would say just get after it. And you're going to have such incredible experiences. You're going to a wonderful school, got a whole plethora of opportunities in front of you, and I'm excited you to take those opportunities and continue to grow and develop and mature and become a successful member of society.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you once again.
Yeah.
Stay in touch.
That was great.
All right. Cut. Thank you for tuning in to my episode with Armaan Saxena. If you enjoyed that episode, I guarantee that you'll enjoy this episode right here. To continue receiving incredible content like this, the best way you can support us is by hitting the subscribe button. It's completely free, and you'll continue to get more videos like this on your homepage. And while you're at it, you can hit the like button, leave a comment with your feedback, and share this link with your best friend. It'll put a smile on my face. Thank you once again for tuning in, and join me on the path to greatness.